people here believe there's an afterlife? Wrong answer. I actually don't believe there's an afterlife. Okay. Ooh, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Because belief has nothing to do with it. I've been involved in this 40 years pretty much this month. I've had readings, I've done God knows how many readings over that period of time. A percentage of the readings will have spirit communication, which I often find more interesting than, you know, you're depressed, you're upset, your boyfriend broke up last week from you, etc. Which, you know, a number of people who come to see me will be about that. But it's a spirit communication which I find the most intriguing. My life has been dominated in the last 40 years by the phenomena of clairvoyance. Even down to the fact I've met my wife through it as well. If you're going to die tomorrow, I will tell you. Okay, I am totally tactless like that. Truth, information is the only thing that I'm interested in. Facts is the dominant concept. When we first got together, we were lying in bed one morning and she asked me the dreaded question, where do spirits hang out? I knew what she was getting at. And I said, anywhere they want. And then she said, in the bedroom. Now, what I haven't told you at this point is my wife's been married before. He did expire from a motorbike accident. A couple of days after she asked me that question, she went and saw a lady called Ruby, who was a clairvoyant. I've never heard of the woman since. Never heard of her before that. But this Ruby was quite good. She actually brought up Tommy's name and then said to my wife, why is says he spends all his time in the bedroom? He was listening. They listen. They are still around us. There's no question in my mind that people stay with us. I did a reading recently. This woman's mother came across, gave heaps of information. It was a really good session. At the end of the session, she told me that her mother died when she was 4. This woman would be 80. Okay? It is true that there is information that some people come back to this world in much shorter time period. It's also true, from what I can see, that we don't all come back that quickly. The weakness in a clairvoyant is the human component, me. Okay? On a good day, it's like listening to someone talk to you. On a bad day, it's like you're fighting for the information. So let me start and see where I go, because I've only got one person in my mind at the moment, and that's the lady in the pink or purpley pink at the back.
Hi.
Is that purple?
Oh, pinky purple.
Pinky purple. Oh, good. That's right. Okay. Starting from cold again. That's life. There is a chap with you. Okay. What he's doing at the moment is putting his arm around you, so I'm assuming he's more than just a friend. Okay. Does the name Harry or Harold make some connection to you? Okay. I want to keep that name though, okay, because I can't shake, I'm fairly sure it's Harold, okay, and I'd ask you later, not now, because you obviously can't think of the name, to think about that name and place him in your family, okay, because I don't think we're talking about your father, okay, I'm talking more like a grandfather or even a great-grandfather, okay, does that make more sense?
Not yet, but...
I'll rephrase what I just heard. What you're driving. Okay? What you're driving, they're talking about a car accident, not talking about anyone being hurt, etc. Yeah. So I've just twisted that a little bit because they were talking about you having a car accident, a small one. So what you're driving, I don't think this is fast, etc. Okay, so be careful with the driving. Okay? It's almost like in some sort of confined space type thing, car park or coming out a driveway. It looks more like a driveway to me. Okay, so be careful you don't do the vehicle damage. Okay, have you nearly done that already? Have you?
Not in my new car, no.
That used to do it the old one?
A couple, yeah.
They're saying you don't always focus when you're driving. And then they're saying we're still on your side though.
Glad to hear that.
Okay. Move on. Okay, let's move on. Okay, which girl is brilliant girls? Yeah. Okay, so it's either you or you, I imagine. Okay. So I'll probably come with you. Okay. I'm going to put this in a question. It's not coming at me as a question. What do you have to finish?
Oh, so many things.
Sorry?
So many things.
Okay, because they are saying finish what you started. Okay. They also seem to be suggesting 5 years from now everything's going to be absolutely different for you. Okay. So your love life hasn't been great.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Ups and downs.
Yeah, it's like that. Okay, that's the way it's coming at me. You know, like that. Okay. They also seem to be suggesting that's going to change. Okay. Again, I don't think that's within that 5 year period. Okay. They also seem to be talking, and don't be careless with your finances at this point. Okay. Because you can't afford to be careless at this stage, but they are also saying that will change as well. Okay. They also seem to be suggesting, it's funny with you, you're independent but you're not. Weird response that, okay, it doesn't make a lot of sense from my standpoint. But in one breath you're independent, next breath you're not, okay. They're also telling you to stop crying. But they seem to be suggesting it's rather pointless, okay, because they don't want to listen to it. Okay.
Who is they?
The spirit people I've got here who are not quite identifying themselves totally this afternoon, which is a shame.
Are they your spirit guides or they?
Be a mixture. Good question. It will tend to be a mixture between the ones that normally work with me to keep things under control, okay, and the ones that you bring into the room as well, okay, as well as whatever questions you may have and things going on in your head will also have an effect on this, okay. So there's quite a mixture, okay. The lady next to my wife, yep, in the black. I like black. I get a little bit funny when you come across clairvoyants who wear white. You know, they're all a bit weird. And clairvoyants are weird enough as it is. You're into spirituality, are you? There's a beam of light around you, okay, which is usually an indication of some level of spirituality, okay. I'm not going to change what your perceptions on that, okay. I had a heart attack, Miles chest. There was a man who had a heart attack who died.
Well, my gran had 3 heart attacks and my dad had a triple bypass. But they didn't die.
I think it'd be more like the grandfather than the father. Okay.
Yeah, my granddads didn't die from their heart.
That's fine, but he had the heart condition. Okay. Is that right?
No.
No. So who had the heart condition? I still want to put it towards more a grandfather than a father, especially with the clothing that shows up here.
Neither granddad had a heart condition. Oh, no. Emphysema. Yeah.
No, that's not a heart condition. It was quite specific heart condition. Did one of them live in the country?
They both lived in a small town.
But that's still country to me.
Okay.
Okay. Push forward, push forward, push forward, push forward. You need to push forward now.
Oh, really?
You need to push forward. Again, I think they're talking financially. You need to push forward.
Oh.
Okay. You want to set things up now for the future.
Yeah.
Okay. Push forward financially. Push forward financially. Okay. They're not talking about lack of money.
Right.
Okay, they're talking about organisation of money.
Okay.
Do you understand? Makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay. You're trying to listen to them too, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, because they grab your ear and start pulling your ear. Okay. Not always easy to listen to spirit people. Okay. Okay. So, anybody got any questions they want to ask?
Lots.
Oh, shoot.
Lots and lots.
Shoot.
But I didn't want to interrupt the flow. When you're doing something, doing a reading like that from a public platform, how do you get the information? What senses are you using? I guess all of them. And how does the information sort of translate in your mind to the person?
Well, it can manifest in different ways. The harder way is when there are symbols, and it's all symbolic, because then I have to work it out. Okay. Sometimes it's crystal clear. Sometimes the information's there before I turn up at a venue. Okay. It didn't happen this time when I was turning up here, but Redcliffe last week, not Redcliffe, Salisbury last week, I actually had the first and last name of someone who passed over, and that was a good half an hour before I turned up there. Okay, so it does vary. The other thing which is relevant here is the telepathic component, okay, because spirit communication is fundamentally a telepathic process, okay, which also means that I have to be careful that I don't just pick up your thoughts, okay. I'll give you a story. I was doing a reading, this is long before I met my wife, a rather large room. I had a client sit down in front of me, and then her friend sat down on the side. I think I was around about 27, so that's a long time ago now. I was doing the reading, and suddenly I turned to the friend and I went, "Oh, you're cute too." And she went, "Ah, you read my mind." Because that's what she was thinking. Okay. So yes, can be that telepathic pickup of anybody who may be in the room, as well as the client in the room. And that's one of the risky sort of components. You have to work out the difference between, so it's a straight telepathic pickup from the client, which is quite impressive in its own right if you think about it. But if you're wanting to get to the facts or an answer, then you never really get to a fact or answer from being, if you want to be helpful. And I don't try to be helpful. It's not my job to be helpful. My job is the information. Okay. At any time, that's what I'm chasing. Okay. Sometimes it will manifest as pains in my body. It did that at Boundary Street Spiritual Church a few years ago. I came to the end of the clairvoyance session, and at that point, I went to turn to walk away, and a pain grabbed me in the groin and went down my leg. I've never had that pain since, or after, or before or after. Okay, and then everybody went, "Whoa!" Sort of panicked. He's in chronic pain, because I literally leant over, and I stood up and I went to the lady I last talked to, and I said, "You had a friend who died, and they had a real pain from down their leg," and then she said, "Yes, he just wants to say hello." Okay, so it can manifest that way. It can manifest in a feeling that becomes a word. Sometimes a feeling that becomes an image. Sometimes there's a crystal clear image. Okay, and there's probably a few other ways which I can't think of off the top of my head. Sure.
How did you actually realize that these feelings and these thoughts were coming from, not from people, not from us, but from them?
Practice. Practice makes perfect. In this, practice makes perfect. If you are going to want to develop this yourself, if you can, because I've only met maybe 5 decent readers in 40 years, and a whole group of people who had something, but not quite. Okay. The best thing you can do is meditate. Okay. If you've got the ability in there, it will find a way of manifesting. Okay. The best form of clairvoyance in my head for most people is personal clairvoyance, which tells them not to jump in the car or do this or do the other thing, etc. And that gives me a story. When our daughter was still playing netball on a Saturday morning, as we were walking out the door, to drive her down to Graceville. I think it's Graceville or Chelmer, whatever. I had the keys in my hand, I was going to drive, and the voice said, "If you drive, you will all be dead." And I went, Now, I heard exactly what was said, "if you drive." So I lifted the keys over to my wife and said, "You're driving." Didn't tell her why, but you're driving. Who knows the bridge over the railway line at Darra? Does anyone know that? Okay. Narrow bridge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. We went to netball. Netball was cancelled, so we had to come back. So we decided to get petrol from the service station that used to be there. Okay. We had to go over that bridge and turn right. You know that corner? Okay. Quite narrow, isn't it? Oh, very narrow. We come to a halt because of an oncoming car, and then my wife started jerking forward, and I was just turning to my wife and saying, "What are you doing?" Okay. When a semi-trailer comes zooming up on the left-hand side of us. Now, what Vic saw was this semi wasn't slowing down, and that's why she was putting her foot on and off the brake. If we got hit from behind, he would have wiped us out by the fact he was a semi, let alone being pushed into an oncoming car. We would have been a mess. The difference in that situation was the way my wife reacted versus the way I probably reacted, which would be more masculine and say, "Put foot on the brake," oh, you know, etc. She did the right thing. I probably wouldn't have done that. Okay, so they were right. I'm still alive today. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, next story, next question. Whenever I do a reading or a session or a group session, I will sit back and analyse every time. And not all sessions are the same, okay? Not all readings are the same. There's a lot to do with readings, to do with the people in the group or people who come see me, okay? If they have no story, there is no story. Again, a story. Many years ago, I had a woman come see me. All I said to her was she was boring. The whole session I said she was boring. A friend of hers who worked with her, not a friend, so someone who worked with her, came to see me the following week, and she said, "Do you remember such and such?" And I said, "Yeah, the boring one." She said, "You're right. If you have no story, if your life is boring, what do you expect?" The number of individuals that come to me who have said, "Oh, when am I going to find the love of my life?" And the response could come back is, "Well, you got to work, come home." You're not going to find anyone doing that. And no one's going to find you. Simple as that. Okay. We go back. Now, what was your question again?
How do you know that it's not your own intuition speaking to you loudly?
Sometimes I can't. And sometimes the intuition will be there, and it's not until something else happens around me before I realise that was something significant. Okay. Other times it's like someone yelling at you. Okay. It's crystal clear, it's different, it's absolutely different than my normal thinking. And that's one of the reasons why I analyse so much. What is the difference in the feeling? Okay. And even coming here, I knew today would, even when I'm doing the clairvoyance, would be different than last week because it felt different before I even got here. Okay. Today is more of a struggle. Okay. I know that. Okay, I can feel that. I felt that before I got here, let alone the fact I panicked before getting into the building, didn't I, Vic? Okay, which probably didn't help. Okay. I had a lady come see me recently, and in the reading, she brought, either I brought up or she brought up going to Ireland. Okay, and I then said, "Well, you're not going." Apparently, in a week or two after that, as I found out, she had been bagging me and saying I was an arrogant bastard. Okay. That's all right. I don't care. Okay. The person who heard that, who came and told me, went back and talked to her about 3 weeks later and said, "How was your trip to Ireland?" I didn't go. The wedding was called off. 23 years ago, etc. And in the reading, and look, I am tactless. I said that before. I'm tactless. You come for a reading me, I'll tell you. this woman sat down and I said to her, there's a death in the family, it's not your partner, it's a strong male. Okay? She immediately, after the reading, went up to the Pato Hotel, invited her son up and said to him what was said. Okay? And he went, huff, like that, as I can understand it. Vic might correct me on the wording. Okay? 2 months after that, he was killed in a motorbike accident. Okay? 3 days after that, she came back with the daughter. I did a reading again for the mother. The mother was very angry, etc. I did a reading for the daughter. In the reading, I said to her, "Who's this girl with blue eyes? So I could fall in love with her," etc. In the reading too, I said, and it came out that she was the wife of the guy who just died. Then it was suggested, she could do a meditation course to calm herself down, etc., etc. 3 weeks after that, I had this phone call. Also, the girl sitting in front of me was attracted to me. I knew that. Okay. No, I didn't like her at all. Anyway, 3 weeks later, she came back and asked me, did I know any groups to do meditation course? And I said, well, there's the Raja Yoga group down in Milton, Relaxation Centre, no, I could do it if you want. Pretty much that was the attitude, etc. I rock up there, blue jeans, black t-shirt, leather coat. One of the people there was expecting me to walk in with a Indian Punjabi suit, which I didn't. Okay. Sat down opposite this lass and felt good the whole night because I was staring at her blue eyes. Okay. And I married her. Okay. That's true. Let me go one step further. I'm not a fan of Ouija boards. Okay. I don't think they give you a lot of control. There's still control in me. I can go, I don't feel comfortable with this, etc., etc. However, his mother and sister and a couple other people go around the Ouija board, and I can be corrected on this if my story is wrong. They actually contacted Tommy, that was his name, and at one point they said, "Oh, is there a message for Vicky?" Okay. At which point his mother fell asleep apparently. It's spelled out for Stephen, take care of Vicky. Now, that's our story. That's how we met. Because I followed through and said what was there. Okay? I believe in saying the truth, regardless if I like the truth or not. You can disagree with that, and that's your right. Okay? But if I start holding back on anything, it will cut the tie very quickly. It's like a flow. Once there's a flow, and look, there's times when I've done readings for people and they've come back and told me what I told them, and I go, Lord, did I say that? Okay, but in the flow, it just comes out. If that answers the question, in my perspective, and I think there is a tendency, from a commercial standpoint, also to make it nice. Nice. I don't care about nice. Okay? I just don't. I care about the fact. I had a skeptic come see me many years ago, and I brought up the idea of a past life and him hurting his leg, and he said, "Oh, that's interesting, because I've hurt my leg recently." Okay? And if past lives have any connection to the here and now, it'd be the reoccurring situations.
Yeah.
I think it would be totally illogical of me to say there's not life forms out there. Okay? Because It's a curious thing. Again, I had thoughts, not specifically of aliens, but the idea if this planet got wiped out of all life, and they seem to be suggesting there was a big enough solar flare, ending up to 8 meters beneath the ground would be done. But seeing they've found single cell life forms further down than 8 meters, life can exist anywhere. Okay? There's only one occasion I can say that two occasions actually. I remember walking outside to get some washing off the line when I was quite young. Very unusual in those days, okay? At night as well. Walked out, went to the clothesline, head dropped back, and there was a light. I went to see a friend, this again, some years after that, a friend, Lorraine, her name was, Lorraine Smith. Isn't that funny? I haven't thought of her name in years. She was supposed to be a clairvoyant. I can't say I saw enough to say yes or no. But I noticed her and her flatmates were walking out the front of their door time looking up, and I actually said, "What's going on?" And they said, "We're watching a UFO." I went, "Really?" And I went outside, they pointed to it, and as I was watching this light that was slowly moving, another light came down. Okay. The following week, okay, there was reports of UFO activity out of Warwick, okay, which was the basic direction I was looking in. So, again, those are the only personal experiences I've had, which I can't say is necessarily telepathic or clairvoyant, etc. The other point here is like spirit guides. I remember years ago I did a reading and this person said, "You've got wonderful connections to your spirit guides." And I just went, "Wow, I haven't thought about such things in 5 years. As long as they do their job, I don't care." Okay, so if an alien life form was to communicate with me, unless they were specifically indicating they were alien, I probably wouldn't take any notice. For me, clairvoyance, in a given day, most of the time when I'm clairvoyant, it's when it's time to work. Okay, but sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's subtle, and sometimes it's loud. It varies from person to person. I can't answer your question. I know there's patterns for life, recurring patterns. I mentioned my wife's first husband was Tom. Okay, we moved to River Hills, to where we are now. We found out within a week or two that the lady next door, her name was Vicky, and guess what? She had been married to her Tom, but divorced him. Pattern. We moved from 74 Oldfield Road at a time in my life when I was spending a lifetime in nursing homes, a field of old. Okay. Went to 74 Pallot Street, bought a car there which was 574. Okay. That number 74 followed us. Okay. Now my son has that car. Okay. So it's still sort of vaguely there. Okay. So there is that sort of phenomena going on too in life. Patterns and that may be such a pattern for you. It's not enough from my experience to put much more to that.
You said before that you've probably seen about 5 good psychics in your life.
Right.
From your observations, what do they all have in common? Their personalities, their things about them. What do you think?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've never.
Are there any commonalities?
I'm not so sure. One of those 5, maybe 6, whatever, is Glenys Mackay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm nothing like Glenys Mackay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, when she's on a roll, she's brilliant. Okay. I know Vic and I had a reading from Glenys. This goes back a few years ago. She named every dead person we knew, including a couple names that were unusual, which are Indian. One was kept going, who's his name was Prit. Indian guy. Hard name. Okay. But literally every dead person we knew. Okay. And I can't say there's much in common between me and Glenys.
What about creativity? Because it's a creative experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I can see how it is a creative experience. I'm thinking of a chap called Bill Ryan. Okay. Hasn't been in Brisbane for at least 22, 23, 24 years. Excellent clairvoyant. When he was on a roll, we actually saw him do a session where he was giving first and last names. and then descriptions of the spirit people. Okay, and I have to say I can't see much in common with him other than we're both male. It varies to a certain degree what the experiences that people have. Okay, the tunnel thing seems to be very common. Okay, peaceful sensations very common, etc. But there seems to be a few who don't have that. Okay, it's interesting from my standpoint. People who come back and talk. Okay, sometimes the people you expect to talk the most are the ones who don't. It's a skill from their standpoint too. Okay, and from what I can gather, there's usually a group of them working together, not just one individual. Okay, so they interact with each other, trying to make the phenomena work out the way they want it to work. Okay, so it's not just that he was there, there would have been others working with him, making sure that this could go down. Even down to the fact of making me feel like I want to do the semi-trancey thing. Okay, so it's up to them. And look, the shortest amount of time I've ever had someone who passed over and communicated was 4 hours. He died in America, and he died on the toilet, which he informed me. Okay, 4 hours was the shortest amount of time. I've had other people who just can't seem to do it. People who passed over, that is, can't seem to do it. Okay, for what reason I don't know. Down at Redcliffe, this goes back some years ago. I said to a woman, "Oh, you've had a passing in your family recently," and she said yes. And then I went, "Well, he's saying he's showing himself like this," and she said, "Oh, that's my father. It was my mother who passed over." Okay. The father was the communicator, okay, not the mother, okay. He obviously been there a little bit longer, etc. Got the knack of it, etc., etc. And it's not always necessarily the most likeable people who have the knack to communicate. Someone who I've known for 30 years or more, Julie, the psychic artist actually, okay. Down in Redcliffe, her mother came through very clearly, which was a shock to my system because she was a bitch. That's the only way you can say. Basically, she was sort of attempting to apologise for being this horrible, horrible woman. Okay, but she was doing, from my standpoint, she was doing a very good job at communicating and explaining herself. Okay, and she did infer that she had had some realisation since she had passed over. Okay, which can happen. You also can have people who stay over there for years and years and years and years who are as thick as a brick, etc. I actually got shitty with my dad recently. He's been there 47 years through Glennis Mackay. He said something through Glennis and I went, oh, you, etc. Guess what? The next week I was with Glennis again and he came through again and he made a comment on me getting shitty. Okay. Before I turned professional clairvoyant, I was working in Rockley Markets, okay? And I used to go for a run in my lunch break. I used to run a lot in those days. I miss that. At a certain point, I started hearing this voice going, "What you're doing is wrong." I went, "Stop that, brain, stop it," etc. Following day, same thing was happening. I think 3 days went on like this, and I voted this. There must be something going on here. So I, at the end of that day, laid down on my bed and looked, and there was this priest-type person standing over the top of the bed going, "Talking to dead people is wrong." And as loud as I could think, and I said, "Well, I can't talk to you then because you're dead." And he was gone. That's like bang, gone. I did some readings out at away from the house at one stage, and I did a reading for the owner of the house, and it came out in the reading that the house was haunted. Okay, and so I focused on that, and there was a little old lady And I said, oh, I think this is a little old lady. There was a little old lady in this house before you. She said, yes. And she's the one who's still here. She said, yeah, that's what I see too. And I said to her, oh, would you like me to help her move on to her next stage? And she went, oh, okay. So I focused on this little old lady, and I basically said, you know, you shouldn't be here. There's some place better for you. And I focused on the light sort of idea, etc. And she seemed to brighten up and disappeared. I had a phone call about 3 or 4 days later, and the woman who owned the house said, I miss her. That's how strong a presence she was. Okay, but in that case, it was just as simple as me communicating with both those.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I must have been about 18, 19. I had finished an apprenticeship, bread baking apprenticeship at the time. I joined the Air Force. Okay, already got involved with spiritualism, etc. You know, in the Air Force, everybody got nicknames. You know, these guys realised what I was interested in, and hence my name was Spooks. Okay. After, it was like a 6-week course I was on, etc. About 4 weeks into it, one of the guys said, oh, can you do something for us? And I went, oh, why don't we, and I said, why don't we create a circle and do like a circle? Okay. So we sat in the circle, and I did that semi-trancy type thing. And a person came through and started talking. One of the guys sitting on the side was saying, prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it. I'm sorry. This type of chair, plastic though, and it started going, rocking on the spot. And I remember thinking, am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I causing it to rock? After a minute or so, over on the floor I went. All the guys came around me, okay, huddled around me. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I went, yeah, I'm fine. And that was the end of it. When I opened my eyes, I realised the guy who had been saying, prove it, wasn't in the room. And I went, okay. He took off, whatever. The last day we were there, at Canberra, God, I can remember the name of the place, Canberra Air Force Base. This guy comes up to me and he says, Stephen, you remember that night we sat in the circle? And I went, yeah. You fell off the chair. I went, yeah. Did you realise I wasn't in the room afterwards? I went, yeah. I went to the pub, got myself drunk. I went, oh, okay. Because the chair followed me around the room. Prove it, be careful what you ask for. Okay. Now, I can't prove to you that actually happened other than I didn't see the chair move, but that's what he said, and I got no reason to doubt him because I knew he wasn't in the room after. I knew a lady down the Gold Coast, a friend of hers was into astral projection, big time. Apparently the friend one day decided to astral project, must have done it fairly well, thought of her husband while she was doing it, found herself looking down at her husband, having sex with another woman. When he got home, she told him he had been.
It was true.
It was true. Okay. A psychometry for a lady up in Paddington. It was a ring. It was a most interesting experience because the ring belonged to some sort of German baron. It was made in a castle in Germany from gold that had been stored in this castle for centuries beforehand. Just showed up Nazis. This baron was anti-Nazis, and it showed all that up, and they had to flee there, and that's why the ring ended up in Australia. Okay, so yes, it's gone back. As far as animals communicating with us, I have to say yes to that only, and because there's a vague memory of that happening. Okay, there is a story which I would put in at this point. We had a cat called Kimi. Okay, I had to put Kimi down, which is certain cats and I get on extremely well. Okay, to the point that my wife has been actually jealous of our carrot cat. That's true. But Kiwi was put down. We were in a two-storey house at the time. The morning after, I woke up somewhere during the night and I could hear her purring on the end of the bed, which is where she used to hang out. Okay. In the morning I got up, went downstairs, made the coffee as usual. A few minutes after that my wife came down and she said, "Oh, guess what? Amelia heard Kimi on the end of our bed purring." So it was two of us heard the same thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that animals do survive past this physical form too is there. Okay. Now I've done this for 40 years. There are times where, like I said earlier, I will question it. But on the same token, there's times that things have come out of my mouth and mouth of other people which there's no way they could have known and no way I could have known. A classical story was a lady did an interview with me across the phone. The lady was in Sydney. The person who wrote the questions was her husband. Her husband wasn't even in the room with her when she was talking to me. She did not know the answers. There was questions about his friend. One of the questions that irritated the life out of me at the time was, what was his last name? I closed my eyes and oh god damn it, the only thing I can see is bloody hills. No, I'm pretty much, it was like that with him. I said, all I can see is hills. I don't know why I can see hills. His last name was Hills. Okay. Healing is not specifically a subject here, but placebo effect. If you have a placebo effect from someone laying hands on you, good on ya. Okay. I'm happy for that. Okay. However, I'll tell you one story about a dog. An elderly dog, not uncommon for dogs, the back legs was going to be put down, and a group of us was around the dog, did some healing on the dog. Next day the dog got up and ran around like a pup. There's no way that could have been a placebo effect. Okay, you can't calm a dog like that. Okay, suicide, yeah, interesting question. Anglo-Christian mentality or suicide. If you commit suicide, you die, and you go to hell. Okay. I did a reading some years ago with a woman whose son committed suicide. It came up in the reading, and I said to her, he was born to commit suicide, and she said, yes, I believe that to be the case. How can a person like that go to hell? Okay. It was always planned for that to happen. Here's one of these life or death things that you're not supposed to talk about. I had a client some years ago who I started talking about the son, and suddenly I started talking about the son's friend, and I said, this boy will never get to 21. They were 10 at the time. She came back to see me 11, 12 years later. This boy died 3 months before he turned 21. The information was already out there. Okay. To go back to the suicide thing, I do not believe that we all have the same experiences when we pass over. Generally speaking, there's a generalisation that we have a lot of the same type of experiences. We see a light, we float up, or we see our parents or friends or whatever, etc. That's quite common. I've just forgot my spot then. Okay. Dottie was my mother-in-law, had dementia, quite bad. I remember her saying to Vic, one day Vic walked in there and she said, oh, you look just like my daughter. And Vic said, I am your daughter. And she said, no, you're not, no, you're not, no, you're not. That's how far the dementia had got. She died, obviously. The following day, I chose to go up to the nursing home and clear her stuff out of the room. There was 2 roundish type pictures which I weren't sure belonged to Dot or the nursing home. So I made a bit of fuss about these pictures and asked the nurses, etc. about it. About a week after that, we were at Boundary Street Spiritualist Church, for those who know Boundary Street, and one of my favourite clairvoyants, Glenys Mackay, was there. She brought up my mother-in-law. I think she may have even mentioned her name. Then we proceeded downstairs, had coffee downstairs, and she continued with us about Dorothy. Guess what Dorothy made mention of in that afternoon through Glenys? These round pictures. So within 24 hours of passing over, she had the know-all, where-all, whatever, to know that I was in that room making a fuss about these pictures. So within 24 hours she went from I suppose you have to say, mental condition, to being clear. I've got no doubt that a number of people who commit suicide have a transition where they become clear in their thinking again. In saying that, I remember a young lass who committed suicide. Her father came to see me a couple of times. The first time she was arrogant as all hell over there. The following time, which was months and months and months later, she came across apologising. She clearly became more clear in her thinking. She wasn't damned in some sort of hot hellhole burning away for eternity. Okay? In saying that, I think it's also true that whatever you take over with you when you pass over can stay with you. So if you choose to be depressed when you're passed over, you may still choose to be depressed when you get over there. And in some cases, if you think of our minds, when we get upset, it becomes a cycle, doesn't it? We think about the same thing over and over again. And I suspect with some people, when we pass over, it continues to do so. So you create your own mental drama, okay, until you wake up and come out of it, okay, which could be a week, a day, etc. Okay, so no, I don't think just because someone commits suicide, that's the end of the story and they're going to rot in some horrible place for eternity. There isn't anything special about this. The fact is that I often call clairvoyance listening. All I do is listen. And at the end of the day, if it wasn't the feed of spirit people or telepathic connections, I'm useless. It doesn't matter if I'm a trance medium. If someone doesn't want to talk, I'm useless. Okay? That's not totally true. I'll tell you of one experience I had many years ago. I can actually tell you where it happened. It was Park Road. I was doing readings in a shop behind that little Eiffel Tower, and I had an afternoon where I knew nothing and everything at the same time. All you had to do was ask me a question, and literally I could answer any question you asked me. Okay, but that's a rarity. I think that's probably one of the few times I've ever experienced that. Okay, but on the same token, I knew nothing. Okay, so it's. You have to ask yourself when it comes to attached spirits, how much of the person who's alive wants this sort of thing to happen. And people can seem to enjoy being depressed. They can certainly seem to enjoy having these sort of phenomena happen to them. Okay. I'm Stephen Spencer. I happen to do clairvoyance. That's all it is. Okay. Why I do it, I don't know. I just do it. Okay. Does that make me special? The answer to that's no. I'm no different. A small story from years ago, a healing one. I was asked to send healing to a handicapped lady. That particular day was full on. I did something like 5 readings. So it was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon and I was exhausted. Okay. Nothing worse than sitting on your backside for 5 hours straight. Okay. The worst part of my job, sitting on my backside. So I laid down and I was going to go to sleep, and then I remembered I was supposed to try and send some healing to this lady. And I went, oh gosh, I don't have the energy. Can you help her? With that I fell asleep. Phone call next day. And the mother said, at 3:30 or whatever time I went to sleep, the daughter with the handicap felt something come over her and she felt so much better. I didn't demand, I asked. Okay? And I still think it's respect. You know, it's like a spirit person. You know, when one does a really good job of communicating, I go, you know, you did a good job. You really did a good job. Thank you. Thank you. There is almost a delusion of free will. Okay? And in spiritualism, one of the principles is wrapped around the idea of free will. Okay? After 40 years of doing this, and watching it how it play out in my life, we live at River Hills. About 20 years beforehand, a lady called Van James. Anyone heard of Van James? Okay. My God, what a woman.
You don't mean Val James.
No, sorry?
No,
Van. It's Van James, yeah.
Oh.
She's a really intense individual. Okay. But she even mentioned River Hills. So at the time, I went over to River Hills to a street called Tigris, which is around the corner from where we live. And I stood at the end of the street and in my head went, no, in hell am I going to live here? Guess where we've been living for the last 10 years? Okay. Literally, as I look back, it was like we were pushed in a certain direction. And even when we were about to buy a house, the house that we had thought would be really good, etc., it went before we could actually buy it. And then we suddenly found ourselves in this sort of funnel thing where there was an option of 2 houses, and the house we're living in at the moment, we got it for about $50,000 or $60,000 cheaper than the original asking price. Okay, which was pretty good at the time. Okay. So yes, I think everything is preordained. I think there's clear-cut delusion of free will. Even when spirit people talk at times, there can be, I've got no doubt they know what's going to happen next anyway. Okay. A prime example was my wife the other week. Tommy came through me, and what was the wording? The wording was it support your daughter? Okay, support your daughter, and there was something else that he said at the same time. Which Vic's first reaction was bloody.
That's right, don't keep the peace.
Don't keep the peace. Don't keep the peace. At which point, Vic said to me afterwards, well, you still telling me what to do? You did, didn't you? Yeah. But on the way home, I kept saying to Vic, because we've had a little bit of hassle with our daughter and our son, okay? And Vic immediately thought it was about that. And on the way home, I kept saying, don't assume it's that, don't assume it's that, don't assume, etc. Wait and see what it is. Within 24 hours, an issue came up with our daughter with her work, okay? And the words made more sense fitting it to the issue that was coming up with the work, okay?
So how do they see the future?
Is time relevant anyway?
Well, is it not relevant when
Time's not relevant. Science tells you that. If you go off the planet, okay, out of the gravity field, time is different. Now, they know that, okay? They know if you have a black hole, time seems to be different around that. They know that, you know, that's science as we know at the moment. So time is not this linear thing that we relate to.
But that would imply they're all places at once, seeing the future and telling you.
Yeah.
Do they see the past as well?
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, no doubt. Who's had readings of me where I've mentioned things from the past? Yeah. Okay. All right, and they can sometimes see things that you prefer them not to see too. Okay.
What's the next question? What does the world look like to you? Like, do you walk into a room and see spirits and say...
No. No. I said before, when I work, when I'm not, I'm not. I'm very controlled like that. Okay. Occasionally they will break through when there's something important, okay, and tell me, but that's occasionally. But, you know, most of the time I'm as thick as a brick like anybody else. Okay. It's only when I focus and I choose to work 90% of the time. Frequently it's a feeling that becomes an image. Okay. Sometimes there's no image at all, but I'm hearing them say the way they looked, etc. So it varies. Sometimes before reading, when I've got more time to relax and focus, and I usually, when I'm at home with a private reading, will focus on the client beforehand. At times I've seen the client before they turned up. At times I've seen spirit people before they turned up. But that's usually very much in my head. Okay, it was like yesterday. I had one booking in the morning. Okay, I sat down or focused at some point, and the feeling of a young girl came across me, and I went, that can't be right. The woman who's booked in, I'm pretty sure she's not like a 20 or 30-year-old. I could tell that from the voice when she booked. Shortly after that, I looked at my phone, and there was a text from another female who turned up at 11 o'clock later in the morning, and she was a young one. Okay, so in a sense, I saw her before she turned up. Okay, again, I sometimes get answers to questions. That's an interesting story. Answers to questions before the client turns up. Okay, and I've often have said it's the most interesting things I say. It's usually within the first 5 minutes before that client has any capacity to influence me. Okay, now goes back way 20 years. Back in the days, the transy sort of thing I used to do. In a 3-week period, I joined up with a few friends, etc., and a spirit guide would come through. The way he liked coming through to start with was he would pick up a pillow and throw it at one particular female, have the pillow hit her on the chest, and then land on her lap. And that's the way he used to introduce himself each week. One of the things he liked doing was answering questions, so he'd go around the room, answer the questions that everybody threw at him. Then he went around the room answering the questions they thought of during the week and then forgot about it. Which is impressive. The only time I saw that he didn't know something was one night he turned to an older woman and he just went, I didn't know you had a son in spirit. I'll go find him for you. And she screamed at that point and said, I just was thinking about my dead son. He heard her thinking. And then he then became the medium to me, to her. He was talking to the son was talking to him, he was telling me, I was telling the mother. The mother, at the end of that night, came up to me and she said, I've been involved with spiritualism for 30, 25, whatever years. This is the day I believed. And I had a lady come back to see me. She only saw me twice in the last 12 months. The first time her husband came through and he said to her that first time about a small operation up here. She went to the doctor. They did a scan and found a small lump. Okay. He came, talked to me to inform her about this. I don't know if that lump would have ever got, it was cancerous, but it hadn't progressed very far. He came back and informed her. I told a story to someone before where I went to Dad Newman House, I was doing readings, 2-level building, okay. The first day I was downstairs, banging upstairs. I knew nobody was upstairs. I said to somebody, what's that banging from? Oh, it's the spirit that lives here. So next day, I went upstairs, the banging was downstairs. It didn't like me. Okay. For more indication, it was the spirit of a young German guy during World War II who hanged himself in that Newman house, okay, and hence hangs out in the house. Yeah. I don't have a major problem with that sort of stuff, but if the white lighting is a damn good technique NDE read on white light is a very classical metaphysical sort of approach to it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's worthwhile looking at. Even as a healing technique, if you visualise that white light in your heart going down your arms to the person, etc.,
Yeah.
it opens the flow, etc.
I find
And
that-
again, I don't tell the universe how to use the white light.
Mm.
I'm not enough of a doctor to tell you. Well, I might be able to tell you you're going to have a heart condition shortly, but I'm not enough of a doctor to tell you how to fix it. Okay. And with that, I better stop because she's smiling at me. The interesting thing today, if I was trying to do the clairvoyance, the feeling in my head was heady. The whole afternoon has been heady to me. Okay, which then makes it harder to do clairvoyance if it's all